Hello, people. Good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back in with you guys for another show to discuss another dropped points game for Arsenal. 1-1 against Wolverhampton Wanderers. It's frustrating. It's everything that we expect from Arsenal these days. Will things change? Well, we're going to have a little bit of a talk about that in a second. But thank you ever so much for tuning in. I know it's frustrating. I know it's good to come on here and have a bit of a vent and have a bit of a rant. And we are probably going to do that for a bit. Most importantly, I want to read through some of your comments and get your thoughts on what has just been a really, really disappointing game once again at the Emirates. Arsenal failing to take points in their last 4 points in the last two Premier League fixtures at home. And I mean, should we really be too surprised at what's going on right now? Probably not, but that doesn't mean it's going to stop us from talking about it. So let's go through some of your comments. Thank you so much for tuning in. Tekos Man says, we look good until Emery started tinkering. Arsenal fan says, why take off a DM for a winger? Carl Hellberg says, because he doesn't want the job anymore. It's as simple as that. Canoe says, where did Torreira play? Because he wasn't playing as a DM. South London's Finest B says, the way we set up is a disgrace. Inviting pressure on at home and breaking. How about work patterns of play? Get out Emery as far. As for our midfield, don't get me even started. Cole says the stats say they had 28 shots. Of course, most of them were hopeless effort from distance, but it showed how much ground we conceded in the game. Rohit says, I'm strictly Emery out now. Richard says, after Leicester, he has to go. Kiba says he's been Emery out since Watford. O'Malley says, why did he take Torreira off? Banter defending says Jonas. Seb says Wolves had plenty of decent attacking moments, mainly because we let them attack us instead of proactively defending. Justin, well, I've just lost your comment, Justin. It's just shot up and I can't find it anymore. I will find it, I promise. In terms of sort of where, there we go, Justin, another defensive mistake, players switching off. Let's start with sort of how we lined up then, because he went with an interesting team. I saw that Ozil was in there, and immediately I was really, really pleased about that because he is deserved to start this game. He was the best player in the first half by a distance. He was influential in the passing and the movement, keeping and ticking play. He was sliding into tackles. He was winning the ball back against the strongest player in the Premier League, Adama Traore, on the wing. He was just absolutely brilliant. And you can't really take too much away from Ozil's performance overall. I'm surprised he went for the whole game and he wasn't taken off. I'm surprised that he stayed on the pitch, so it's a plus to see him get a whole game. But again, that's not the reason why we lost. It's not the reason why we were able to be so passive once again in the game. And that's because even though Ozil started, we went with the diamond formation, which just hasn't worked when we've used it. We've used it at Liverpool, where we've lost. We used it at Watford, where we scored two and then let two back in to concede and draw in the end 2-2. And now we've used it in this game against Wolves. Now, what I don't seem to understand is we're using the formation against sides with really, really good players in the wide areas. You look at Liverpool, their wide areas are absolutely bursting with quality with their fullbacks, with their wingers. You look at Watford, the likes of Deulofeu running up and down with, I think they had Andre Gray on there as well, and the pace that they've got, the pace that they had in those positions was and Ismail Sarr when he came on in the second half of them. Then you look at Wolves, and whilst they play with two strikers in Jota and Jimenez, Adama Traore and Otto, or Johnny the left back, was brilliant once again, and they were having so much joy down the sides. Jota was able to drift in and out from a central position out wide to the left and had a lot of joy down there as well. And ultimately their goal came from another cross, which we failed to defend. Again, similar position to the Liverpool game. You've got players on that side. A throw-in comes in. It goes to the player. It's kicked over the top, and Jimenez gets over the top and wins it because our defenders are just not switched on enough whatsoever. And it's getting so monotonous and so repetitive that it's getting to the point where you're thinking, how much longer can this go before something changes? Because we're doing the same things against the same oppositions and it's not working. We come up against teams with great width in Liverpool, in Watford, and now in Wolves. And we're conceding goals because we're playing a very, very narrow system. We're playing against other teams that we know can hurt us more centrally, and then we play with a more wide formation. It's really, really a struggle to sort of get my head around why Emery is persisting with these certain angles and with these certain types of play, because it's just it's just not working. And that's why so many people are getting so frustrated in the chat boxes, getting so frustrated with Emery, because he's trying the same things that haven't worked in the past and then reapplying them again. The substitution. Let's talk about the substitution, because first off, Laka comes off. Now, I'm not sure the Laka substitution. I'm sure we'll get some more information when he has his press conference. But the Laka substitution, whether it was an injury or not, obviously brought on Martinelli, which is fine. I'm happy for him to do that. It meant that we still remained in sort of a more central formation because we brought off a striker and brought on another player that, yes, can play on the wing, but we didn't have another wide player to really use other than if Ozil or Ceballos pushed out wide, which didn't really happen. And so you're still sticking with those up top. Now, what I would have done is I would have brought off Ceballos for Martinelli, kept Laka up top, pushed Alba left, Martinelli right, or bring on Saka, push Alba right, Saka left. Why take off Lacazette, who was providing a lot of energy, was harrying the forwards? And if you've got Lacazette and Martinelli to really pressurise that back four, or that back five as they were playing, then you've got a lot more opportunities to create mistakes. You've got a lot more chances to nick the ball off in the final third as they try and push for a goal. And you've got a lot more opportunities to hit them on the counter with more wide players in there as well. So why we did that, I don't understand. And then the second one is when they take Torreira off. You think that he would learn his lesson against Liverpool game. We took off Torreira and then we took off Torreira and we brought Saka on. And why would you do that when you're trying to hold on? We know that we struggled to score that second goal. I know that he's trying to close out the game, but you've got enough quality on the pitch there to try and close out the game and to score a second goal to try and win it. You don't then take off Torreira over someone like when Ceballos is still on the pitch. Because Ceballos was in the ball, even taken off Guendouzi. Guendouzi didn't have the best game in the world. And especially in the first half, there were some opportunities where he gave the ball away. I still personally put that down to a lack of movement and a lack of opportunities being created by this team, and basically an immaturity with the system and not really knowing the system too well. So therefore, those passes that, yeah, they should be easy passes. Yeah, he should be making those. But if you're uneducated or if you're uncomfortable or you're not getting enough options in, it puts doubt into your mind. It has a psychological impact on a player, and that was one of the reasons why the increased chance of misplaced passes was happening. But taking Torreira off made no sense. We were in the opportunity where we saw a game in which Xhaka didn't play. Now, I don't really want to talk about the whole Xhaka scenario because I think it's, at this moment in time, quite boring. But you've brought off, Xhaka's not in the team, so it means you play Torreira. Now, if you take Xhaka, who is usually Emery's deepest player, you don't then put Torreira and Ceballos in and get Ceballos being deeper than Torreira in a lot of the game. It makes no sense. I don't understand it. The only thing that I can sort of glean from it is that he's trying to play Torreira further forward because he wants him to win the ball further up the pitch. Now, that's great. I understand that. But if you want a player to do that, then you need to play a more defensive player behind Torreira. Now, the only person that could do that, in my mind, is if you played Chambers at defensive midfield and put Bella in at right back. Now, I don't really want to do that. But that's the only way that I can see us playing with Torreira in a more advanced role, is if you play with a more defensive player behind him. Otherwise, that you are so exposed and you're so open that you're allowing so many chances. And that's why we saw Wolves absolutely dominate this game. And they deserved a point at the end of it. We didn't deserve to win the game, and it's probably a fair result. In fact, it's probably quite harsh on Wolves that we were winning for so much of the game. But it's just so frustrating to see the same problems cropping up week in, week out, in terms of tactical decisions, in terms of individual mistakes, and in terms of the substitutions. It's making no sense. It's getting really, really monotonous, as I've already said. It's coming to the point where I don't see a reason why you would keep this. And the most worrying thing is that we're going to come up against a Leicester side next week that are in full of confidence. I know they've not played this week, and if they lose tomorrow, maybe that will dent them. But if anything, it will just sort of motivate them to get even better over the weekend. And you know they've got a manager that will work on their mistakes and will communicate it much better than maybe Emery can to his team. But at the same time, we're going to come up against a Leicester side. They're going to absolutely gun for us. They know our weaknesses. Our weaknesses in this Arsenal side are very, very clear to see. And a person like Brendan Rodgers, and with the quality in this Leicester side, he is going to be able to cut through this Arsenal team with so much ease. It is going to be ridiculous and quite painful to watch. Let's go through some of your comments before I go on any more of my rant. The Tonecrafter says, all problems clearly point to Emery. Facts. Tekosman says, next week Ozil will be out and Xhaka will be back in. Nick says, this has to become the end. This has become like the end of the Wenger era. Wow. I mean, we're still sort of in that. We haven't sort of moved on. Brighton says, hi, Tom, same old stuff. Emery out. Richard Cannon says, I can't think of anything positive about the club right now. G-Will says, don't you guys realise that Emery just makes sure he doesn't lose his effing scared of his own shadow? If he was trying to make sure he didn't lose, why did he take Torreira off? That makes no sense. Tekos Man says, winning the ball further upfield is a lot harder in this league. Hence, we always have so much space between the midfield and our defence. Richard Banks says that our mood changed when Torreira came off. I think the players are frustrated. Crypto says Emery is a poor manager. His time is up. Anonymous calls him the Spanish David Moyes. Craigie says looks so much better without Xhaka in the team, but Emery is clearly out of his depth. Very bad evening, says Josh Gunners forever. Daniel Roberts says, to be honest, I'd bring Saka back to the under-21s. Maybe that's slightly harsh, but I agree that maybe he needs to be taken out of the limelight a bit. Ashwin says, Tom, it's time we start playing three at the back. I mean, I think there could be even some credence in that. Possibly playing that Bellerin and Tierney as wide players with two in midfield and maybe a three up top, or with a three in midfield with a number 10 and two up top again. But playing with Socrates, Luiz and Holding, it might be the most, or even Chambers. I'd probably personally play David Luiz, Holding and Chambers with them Bellerin right and Tierney left. But that's because I don't have vendetta against Socrates, but he just really irritates me. Obi says, Emery is just not good enough for us moving forward. Wesley said, Emery in. Wait, no, Emery out. Keegan says, why did Pepe not play? I'm really not sure why Pepe didn't play. We were looking for a goal at the end and we didn't bring him on. Tyrone says, can anyone explain the Saka and Sayad substitution? Sailor V, to be honest, we started good, but I definitely don't like the way Emery is utilising Torreira. Glenn Cook says, for such a tactical manager, although I've just lost your comment, for such a tactical manager, why he chooses a diamond against the back three is beyond me. Again, it's a great point, Glenn. We're playing up against a back three, which I know turns into a back five when they're on the back heels, but you'd think you'd match them. You wouldn't put yourself at a disadvantage playing two. Why would you choose to do that? You know the formation that Wolves like to play. You knew how we could set up. So once again, failing at this hurdle is becoming so frustrating over and over and over again. Masterson says, I've just lost. Every time I go to click on a comment, they shoot up. Masterson says, this should be the last game we play Socrates and Luiz together at the back. Vincent says, hi, Tom. Yes, Emery made mistakes, but the players have to show at least desire. None does it. They should show more hunger on the pitch, and they lose at least a bit of intensity. None today whatsoever. Now, the problem I sort of have with that is that I get it completely, and I'll be one of the first people, and have been one of the first people, to turn around and say that the players always share some of the responsibility. But at the end of the day, it is the manager's responsibility to sort of push that team, to motivate that team, to get them working, know the system, educate them on what he wants from them. And there were so many issues with the side today, and so many sort of lacks of fluidity and coherency between the players, that it's just not going to happen. It's really not going to happen. And I can't see us improving if we don't have some sort of change. And it needs to be a managerial change. Now, I can already see people in the chat box. Now, I can tell you for certain that Mourinho is not going to be Arsenal manager. From the things that I've heard from other people, is that the club have already basically said that that's not happening. It's not going to happen. So you can kiss your Mourinho hopes goodbye. It's fair to say. Greg Bear says, Greg Beeler, sorry, says, hi Tom. I'm drained. I'm just done. I will be asking for my Arsenal team for Christmas. Pam Rasta says, Saka was not the ideal replacement for this match. Pepe for Guendouzi, Martinelli for Lacazette, and Kolasinac for Tierney, as he's still not 100% match fit to deal with the overload of Jota and Adam. See, the thing with Tierney is that I think Tierney's really struggling when he comes up against the really quick wingers. He really sort of struggled up against Elliott for Liverpool. He struggled up against who was it? He struggled up against why is it completely gone my head? Crystal Palace, the wide player. I was blue in there and I've already forgotten. Anyway, Townsend, when he came on, I think he really struggled with him. Today, he really struggled with Adama Traore. Just could not sort of get his foot in on the player. And he'll learn. He's still young and he's still improving, and his work going forward is great. But maybe playing in the back three, as suggested early on, might unlock a lot more of what is available from us from Kieran Tierney. Maybe. I'm not sure about that. Chris said Tierney was fine. Oh, yeah, don't get me wrong. I thought Tierney played well today. It's just in some circumstances, when he's coming up against tricky wingers, he can get turned quite easily, and it's just something that he will learn as time goes on. I'm not criticising him at all. It's just something that he needs to improve on moving forwards, but I think he was one of the better players in the team for sure. AO says, what else have you heard, Tom? Manager swap soon? No, as I said, the only thing that I'm aware of is that Mourinho is it's not happening, mate. Carl Hellberg says Tierney bossed Adama. I can't remember him getting a cross in. He did get a couple of crosses in, especially early on in the first half. Adama can turn anyone, says Seb John. That's not just Tierney. Oh, I know that completely. I know he's a very, very good and technical player. It's just something that I think that Tierney needs to work on a little bit as he improves and as he matures. But he was really, really good today on most of it. We will finish in the top four, says Nusra. To be honest, if we finish in the top four, it's not going to be down to us. It's going to be down to the liabilities and the fall of other teams around us not taking their opportunities. G. Will says Emery can't motivate this team. Something is seriously wrong with our club. I don't think Laka and a few more want to play for Emery anymore. Trust me, that wasn't Laka I saw today. XT says top four for you. No, I'm going to go with no. I don't think that we're going to get top four because I don't think that we're going to change manager. I can't see it. I'm fingers crossed, believe me. I want to see a change, but I just don't see us making that change at the moment. And it's so frustrating to see us not take action and not do something proactive because the experiment under Emery has not worked and it is not working. It will continue to not work. I just need to see some sort of change in this team because it's the same thing over and over again. It's Hail Mary time. Sack Emery and take a punt on the Swedish legend. Interesting. Who do you think we should be going for then? Check. Wilson, there is a long way to go during the season. I know there's a long way. I just can't see things changing. Costa Charles says, do you think Xhaka's exit has changed things? And is Emery using Ozil as a scapegoat? If he was trying to use Ozil as a scapegoat, it failed because Ozil was great today. Chris says, Tom, when will you sack Emery? It's not my decision, mate. I have no control over this. In terms of my opinion of when would I do it, I would do it right now. Just Being says, can you tell me what actual formation we played, Tom? Because it looked like it was all over the place. Well, supposedly it was a diamond. I sort of interpreted it as a diamond, but I don't think that it was tight enough. It wasn't what you would expect from a diamond. The only player that really had freedom was Ozil. And actually, the diamond was so misshapen, it began to become a bit of a straight line because Ozil was in line with Guendouzi. The number 10 was dropping so deep into this defensive line to take on the ball and try to drive it forward that he's never going to be able to influence it as much as we want him to if he's that far down the field. It's just not going to happen. Carl says, Ozil pulling the strings is beautiful to watch. It really is. Wilson says, unlike you moaning about Emery, Tom, I really think I'm usually a positive person, but I just cannot get behind him. Glenn says a better manager can get more out of these players, 100%. I just don't know who is available. Again, availability is the thing. That's the other thing that came out of the club is that whilst they acknowledge Sorry, guys. Don't know what happened there. It cut out. It actually said the words on the screen, something has happened. Don't worry. It's not your fault. So I don't know why that would happen. Why would it turn around and say it's not your fault? Sorry about that. I hope that doesn't sort of interrupt the recording when it goes back on YouTube. We're just going to have to find out. Chris says Ten Hag. Irfan says RIP Dracula. Ninja Dan says Emery out. It's the point doing these shows and doing the raw reaction shows week in, week out, and after every single game, we'll get to the point where you'll be able to watch these shows back again and back again and back again. And you'll just be able to see me saying the same thing week in, week out, because I'm constantly saying that the decisions of the manager in terms of substitution is wrong. The decision to start in the starting lineup is wrong. Players are playing in the wrong positions, or they're not playing, or he's not playing the players that should play. and our defence is just not progressing and we're not improving. And I'm just saying the same thing over and over and over again. But for some reason, even though I can see it and you can see it and almost everyone else can see it, things aren't changing. I wanted today to see Ozil behind Pepe and Alba and Laka, because I thought that we would finally create lots of chances for those guys. We're playing against a very, very offensive Wolves side, and I thought we wouldn't play Chambers. I thought that Bellerin would come in because, I mean, they've got a hell of a lot of pace down the wing that we need to keep up with, and Chambers was getting turned inside out. I thought that we would just play in just a completely different way. I thought that Guendouzi and Chiro would be a pivot, not as part of a diamond midfield, and it's just not working. It's just not working, and I can keep on saying the same things, and I can keep on reading all of your Emery out comments. But in the chat box, please tell me, this is the final question I'm going to ask you guys before we wrap things up. Please tell me in the chat box, do you think Emery will survive? Or do you think that the board, or do you not trust the board to do so, and therefore he'll be with us until the end of the season? Is he out now, or is he out before Christmas? Or do you think that he will still be here come the end of this season? Please let me know in the comments. Of course, we have got football next week. We are playing against Leicester, which is going to be a really quite horrible game to watch, because I know that Leicester are going to completely rip us to pieces. But we do have a really odd game on a Wednesday against Vitoria, where we should see some more players in the second string side play. Bellerin and Kolasinac will probably be there. Martinelli will probably start. Saka will probably start too. We're getting to the point now where there's some players that I'm really struggling to see. The depth in the side is diminishing, because with Nelson being injured, and now with Tierney coming into the first team, the second team is getting a little bit disrupted, and maybe that's the reason why we saw a struggle against Vitoria in the first leg. So who knows? Let's see what some of you guys are saying. Do you think he's still going to be here, or do you think he's going to be sacked very, very soon? Omar says, I don't think the board will pull the trigger. Michael said, or Michelle says, he can't make the top four if he stays. Czech says Emery will not survive Xmas. No plans in his strategy, easy to see. Demi says he will be here till the end of Christmas. Brighton reckons that Emery will be fired this week. Matt says he's going to be out at the international break. A Blue Whale says board won't sack until top four is completely under threat. Jamie Phoenix says he'll last until the end of the season. Brian says, don't think the board has earned our trust that they'd make a decision like sacking Emery mid-season. I'd be very surprised, to be honest. Avon says Emery will survive to the end of the season and then be removed by the board when the damage has been done. Omar says that he will stay until the end of the season. And Tekos Man is predicting Leicester 6, Arsenal 0. Jonathan Daniel says sack him now, sack him at the end of the season, but announce the decision now, as to be clear this air of negativity around the club. That's a bit of an odd one. I don't think how you can announced that he won't be continuing when he's under contract. It's impossible. It wouldn't happen. Why would you continue? You can't. He's got a 3-year deal. There's no option. It's a solid 3 years. So that's what it is. You can't do it that way. There's no sort of like if it's at the end of his contract and they say they ain't going to renew it, that's slightly different. Pistol says if Emery stays, it will cost us. Aubameyang and Laka will go. Ninja Dam says sack him now, I think he means. Liam Browning says he has to go. Ryan says they have to at least. I want him gone now. Scary against Leicester. ITT says sack him. Peter Renner says we will try to go one better than Southampton and lose 10-0 with all of our players on the pitch, and the board will still bottle it and keep him. Unai Emery is clueless. I saw that comment. Where is it? Here we go. Danny says Unai Emery is clueless. We have totally regressed as a team. I'm not even surprised we drew, to be honest. We have somehow made every opponent look better than they actually are. Let's see what else people are saying. Gary says consistently having less shots compared to the opposition. 1 win from our last 5 league games is not good enough. I think that's 1 loss in our last 7, though, which is the only other thing that you could say is a slight positive, but it's not really something to get down on. Martin Atkinson is in the chat. Say, I'll cost you the Palace game. Ha ha. Thank you, Martin Atkinson, for tuning in. Salah says 2 points from 9 is disgusting. Ade says, is it possible to tempt Brendan Rodgers now? Who would want that job? Who would want to take this Arsenal team after this Leicester team? Who would? Who would take this? I mean, let's just run through. I want to get up the lineup that was Leicester was playing today, right? And based on pure form, not on quality, but the Leicester team that played last week, should I say, when they won 9-0, which I don't think I can even get up now because the app, right? Well, let's run through the team. I think I can get it from memory. Schmeichel in goal, Leno in goal. In the chat box, Schmeichel or Leno, who would you prefer? Personally, it's pretty close. Leno had a really fantastic save today he made. I think that Schmeichel might just nick it, though. Right back, Pereira or Chambers, who's playing right now. You have to go Pereira. Centre-backs, Johnny Evans. Do you remember Johnny Evans, that we were linked to Johnny Evans a while back? Would you take Johnny Evans or would you take Socrates right now? Because I think that I would take Johnny Evans. Would you take David Luiz or Soyuncu? I think that we would take Soyuncu right now. Ben Chilwell or Kieran Tierney? That's a pretty tough one, although Chilwell has been fantastic this season. So Chilwell's probably edging it right now, but I wouldn't swap them. That's fair to say at this moment in time. Then you look at the midfield. Let's go with Xhaka, or who's sort of there deeper? Is it Ndidi? So Xhaka or Ndidi, you'd go Ndidi all day long. Then you've got the sort of the creative player, which is at the moment Ceballos is starting more than anyone else in terms of creative. So Maddison or Ceballos, you'd have to say Maddison, wouldn't you? Right now, Maddison's being much better. Torreira, no, Guendouzi's the other guy. Who's the other midfield? Tielemans. So Guendouzi or Tielemans? I mean, I'm not sure I'd swap them, but I think Tielemans is definitely. He's been really, really good. But Guendouzi has had a really, really good season. Then you go to the forward line. I mean, Jamie Vardy or Aubameyang. I mean, you'd stick with Aubameyang, wouldn't you? You completely would. You would stick with Aubameyang. And then you've got the wide players. Now, I don't think that Leicester team on paper is better than the Arsenal team. On paper, it's not. But in terms of form and in terms of how they're playing, you can't say that as a team they're not better than us. You can't say that as a team Brendan Rodgers is not coaching that team better than us. Sorry, you can say that Brendan Rodgers is coaching that team better than us because he is. And as a team, that Leicester side that we play next week is better than the team that we have right now overall. On paper, the individual players are better for sure. But as a team being coached, I mean, how is it that has got to the stage where we're spending £50 million on two separate strikers? We're spending £70 million on a winger. We're spending £30 million on Granit Xhaka, £30 million on Mustafi, £25 million on Torreira, 60 million, I think it was, on Socrates, 25 million on Tierney, 25 million on Leno. We're spending money. We're spending money and we're not improving. And it doesn't matter what we like to say or think or shout at the Cronkies, but we're spending money and things aren't improving, and that can only be coming down to one man. Thank you ever so much for tuning in, people. I really do appreciate you spending the time after the game to sort of vent with me. If you've enjoyed the show, please give it a like. I really, really appreciate it. Dipak says, no beers today, Tom. No, but I'm out for a nice meal this evening, so I'm going to really try and take my mind off some of the things that have been going on with Arsenal. You've got some idiots on social media as well. There's just too much negativity that's going on. I sort of need to take myself away from. So yeah. Enjoy your evening. I'm really going to try to enjoy one. If you're going to some fireworks, although the ones around here have been cancelled because of the rain and the awful weather, a bit of pathetic fallacy going on there for sure. But thank you ever so much for tuning in. I will definitely be around over the start of the week to discuss the Victoria game. Maybe do a couple of tactical breakdowns to sort of think about what's going on. Podcast tomorrow. Oh my God, the Gooner Talk podcast, 9 o'clock on a Sunday. Finally back. We're going to have Lee Judges is going to be on, Miami John, and as always, trying to get a debutant on each and every show. A Kenyan, US-based comedian, David the Student, is going to be on as well with us, big Arsenal fan. So us three are going to be on tomorrow at 9 o'clock UK time. So make sure you set your alarms and you put that in your diary and you turn those notifications on so you can tune in with us at that time too. So enjoy the rest of your evening. I'll see you again very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.